Welcome to Charter Local Edition. I'm Tracy Young. Our guest is Dr. Robert A. Schuller. He's a pastor, a New York Times best-selling author. But today he joins us to talk about his most recently published book entitled Leaning into God When Life is Pushing You Away. Good to have you with us, Doctor.
Thank you, Tracy.
I only want to take a short bit of time on
Sure.
this, but 2008 was kind of a difficult year for you. Can you give us just like a 30-second summarization of the changes that took place in your life that year?
It was a year of transitions, is what I would say.
That's a good way to state it.
and God was moving in my life in a powerful way, and I was a little reluctant to move in those directions. But the bottom line is that in November of let me see, it was a year ago, November of '08, I resigned as the senior pastor of the Christ Cathedral, and didn't know where I was going from there. But as God would have it, I started writing, and I finished my book, Leaning into God When Life is Pushing You Away. And at the same time, I participated in some negotiations with my partner, Chris Wyatt, and we acquired the American Life Television Network, and at the same time, wrote a new show and have a new show. So that's a pretty big year for me.
It basically just a 12-month, or a little less than even a 12-month time period.
Exactly.
There's an old saying that, that when God closes a door, he opens a window someplace else.
He does.
How did that true to be for what your experience was?
Well, for starters, I immediately started reevaluating everything I'd said all my life. As all the books I started applying much of what I'd written to myself, and I started leaning into God, and that's the title of my book that I want people to hear. And that's the message I want people to hear.
Which is
that they can lean into God. I do counseling with couples often as a pastor, and you can tell from the body language how they're getting along. They come in and they sit down on the sofa and they're leaning away from each other, and you go, well, okay, there's some problems here. And if you see them suddenly start to lean into each other, you say, okay, they're getting better. They're creating more. Their feelings are doing much better, and that's what happens with us when we feel close to someone. Our natural instinct, our body language, is to lean into them, and that's what I'm encouraging people to do. When you really feel like you need help, lean into God.
So you've written so many books. Did
Yes.
this book automatically come to your mind when you were going through all this? Is this a book you thought about writing years ago? What perpetuated this book?
Well, the fact is, I actually wrote the outline of this book prior to all of this taking place in last year. And so then I had plenty of time to actually do the writing and do the research.
So you took your outline and you put it into a formal book.
I did.
Okay.
And so the good news is that life does have a way of pulling us away from God. There's just certain circumstances that take place where we feel like, hey, I've got to have the power and control to do things, and God's not doing it for me. I've got to do it myself, and it kind of pulls us away from God and into ourselves. And what I want to encourage people to do is to realize that in all ways and in all things and in all circumstances, we need to know that God is there.
Will you speak for a moment on
Sure.
what's happening in the world today, whether it is international strife, whether it is the economy, a high divorce rate that we have to happen here in the United States? How does your book tackle some of those kinds of issues that we're facing today?
Well, those are all prime issues. I believe our society today is very fearful. There's a lot to be afraid of. The economy is scary. People are afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of losing their income. You look at what's taking place in society as far as the Taliban and other situations like that, and it's a very scary place. And what leaning into God gives us is the ability to have the confidence and the assurance that God's going to carry us through.
All right. Well, congratulations on this book. We hope it also makes its time on the New York Times bestseller list, and we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
For Charter Local Edition, I'm Tracy Young. Now back to CNN, HLN.
As your business searches for smart ways to save, don't forget about the one that's right in front of you. Switch to the Charter Business Bundle and you can save big without sacrificing a thing. Get reliable business telephone and high-speed internet with local support and great features. Power your business with great savings starting today. It's easy to pay less and get more. Call now and make a switch to the Charter Business Bundle.